Martini, sir. Prohibition of all the bloody nonsense.
Elliot.
Yes, dear?
Who is this man that you asked to dinner tonight? I had to get Sophie at the last minute or we would have been 13.
He's an English author. He's quite all right. In fact, he's really quite famous. So pretend that you've heard of him, even if you haven't.
That's too much. Get the other glasses. Elliot, you must be slipping if you frequent authors.
Not at all, my dear. Authors go everywhere nowadays. Why, in London, I even met actors and actresses in society. Ah, here he is now. My dear fella, how very nice to see you.
Hello, Elliot.
Let me present you to my sister, Mrs. Bradley. Louisa. Louisa, dear. This is Mr. Somerset Maugham.
How do you do, Mr. Maugham? It's an honor to have you with us.
Thank you. It's very nice to be here.
What on earth are you doing in this benighted city?
I'm just passing through. But you, Elliot, I thought you never left Paris.
Why should I? In point of fact, I came to see my sister, my niece, Isabel. I haven't been back since before the war. I hope you don't mind. A few young things are joining us for dinner, but we can leave early.
Why should I mind? I like young things if they're good to look at.
Incidentally, you'll meet the young man my niece has got herself engaged to.
His name is Larry Darryl, and I might as well tell you at once that Elliot doesn't approve of him.
I have nothing against him, but he hasn't any money. And my sister's not a rich woman by any means. She needs all she's got. I said only
Elliot,
this morning...
is it necessary for you to tell Mr. Maugham all our private affairs?
We can't all be millionaires, Elliot.
He hasn't even got a job.
He can get one, can't he?
He doesn't want a job.
Why not?
Because he's bone idle.
That would shock a man like you who's never earned a penny in his life.
It may have escaped your notice, my dear fella, but I am not an ordinary man. Cocktail.
Oh, yes.
For the run of mankind, industry is essential, and I see no reason why this young man, whom my niece has got herself engaged to, should not conform to the customs of his country. Ah, here's my niece now. All's well that ends well. And I must say they make a very attractive couple.
Oh, no.
I hope they'll be happy.
Why shouldn't they be happy? They have everything in the world to make them happy. Money, position, a nice house. Ray's father can't live forever.
What about Larry? Have you heard anything about him lately?
Good heavens, no. As soon as Isabel and Louisa went away, I dropped him like a hot potato. A most undesirable young man.
I tried to find him the last time I was in Paris, but I couldn't. I wonder what's happened to him.
Shall I tell you something, my dear fellow? I don't care a row of beans.
Au revoir, mon cher. Bien, monsieur. Au revoir.
Monsieur Duquette.
Oui, monsieur.
Venez, venez. This crest is not in the proper place at all. The crest belongs up here, up here. I'm not running in the Olympic Games, you know. It'll all have to be done over immediately. Now, about this robe. It's really dreadful, dreadful. And look at this tassel. Hideous. It should strike me here at the knees, lower, lower, so that when I walk, it'll sway. As it is now, it just bubbles. Where are my ties?
Les cravates de monsieur, tout de suite.
It isn't. By Jove, it is.
Oh.
My dear fella.
Elliot.
Wherever have you been all these years?
I've been a lot in the Orient. The last time I passed through Paris, you were away.
Come in, come in. I have a house on the Riviera now. I reach the time of life when I'm prepared to relax and enjoy the beauties of nature.
You surprised me, Elliot. You've always looked on nature as an impediment to social intercourse.
Paris is not what it was. There's practically nobody to know here anymore. But on the Riviera, there's some really quite nice people. In fact, the shores of the Mediterranean are simply littered with royalties. Heavens knows I'm not a snob. But just as a matter of interest, I don't mind telling you that on one occasion I had 2 ex-kings to lunch. 2.
How nice. Elliot, what the devil's that crown doing over your initials?
His Holiness has been graciously pleased to revive in my favor my old family title.
Your what?
Well, didn't you know? I'm descended in the female line from the Count de Loria, who came over to England with Philip II and married a maid of honor to Queen Mary. As an American citizen, I feel it more modest not to use my title except on all my personal linen.
I think that's a very pretty gesture on your part, Elliot.
Je les prends toutes. I don't mind telling you, I take a modest pride in concealing my rank under the sober pinstripe of an American gentleman. You know that Isabel, the great matron I hear, with her 2 children.
Oh, I didn't know. I've only just arrived in Paris.
They were wiped out in the crash.
Ah, yes, I heard that.
Poor Isabel even had to sell her jewels. Gray tried to get a job, but it appears there was no business. The result was a nervous breakdown, and he suffers from the most frightful headaches. He couldn't take a job now, even if he could get one.
Oh, I am so sorry.
I couldn't allow them to live like pigs, Isabel without a maid and no governess for the children. So I've lent them my apartment here until Gray can get back on his feet again.
You're the most generous creature in the world, Elliot.
Allez, chef d'idée.
Nonsense. If I'm taking care of them, it's because, well, noblesse oblige, you know. Can I drop them somewhere?
What about coming and having a spot of lunch with me? I'm expecting an old friend of yours.
I was not aware that I had any old friends in Paris. And even if I have, I assure you, nothing would give me less pleasure than to meet them at this time of day.
Come along, jump in. We're meeting at the Dome.
I dislike being hustled. To the Dome.
And what about you? Were you hurt in the crash?
God tempers the wind to the shore and land. I happened to be in Rome in September 29. My friends strongly advised me to sell my American securities. I very sensibly took their advice.
So when the crash came, you were sitting pretty.
An Americanism, my dear fellow, which I see no occasion for you to use, but it expresses my situation with a good deal of accuracy. In fact, I was inspired to sell short and made what you would probably call a killing.
You're a downy old bird, Elliot.
I have a flair. I do not like the propinquity of the hoi polloi. Oh, hello. Larry, I thought you were dead.
Oh, sorry to disappoint you.
I'm delighted to see you, Larry. Where have you sprung from?
India.
India. Have you been tired?
Oui, monsieur. Paris.
If you gentlemen will excuse me, I will now leave you. I find I have an engagement. Goodbye, my dear fellow.
Goodbye.
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 Poor boy.
What a pity. I was hoping you and Gray would dine with me tonight.
Oh, I'd love to. But he really suffers. You look very well, Mr. Mom.
I am very well. Larry hasn't arrived yet.
Larry?
Yes, he lunched with me today. He said he would drop in on you this afternoon.
Larry in Paris? Where has he been?
India?
But I didn't know. I didn't know he'd been in India. Do you realize I haven't laid eyes on him for years? Did you tell him we'd lost all our money?
Mm-hmm.
It's funny when you come to think of it. That we should have almost exactly the income that Larry had when he wanted me to marry him. And I wouldn't because we couldn't possibly live on it. And now I have 2 children besides.
I don't think you're so terribly to be pitied.
Mes enfants, ils agacent leur père quand il a mal à la tête. Excuse me.
Voyons, mes petites, je vous en prie. What's kept you? You've been hours.
I came the instant I got your call. What's happened?
It's about Larry and Sophie. The idiot. The stupid, blind idiot. He must be mad.
If you'd calm down for a moment, I might be able to make head or tail of what you're trying to say.
He's going to marry her.
Oh. Oh. How do you know?
How should I know? He just called me on the phone. Oh, I'm frantic.
So I see.
He even had the effrontery to ask me to be nice to her.
Well, it's his own affair, isn't it?
She's an awful woman. She's bad, bad, bad. She soused from morning till night.
That doesn't necessarily mean she's bad. Quite a number of respectable citizens get drunk and do silly things. They're bad habits like biting one's nails, but I don't know if they're worse than that. I call a person bad who lies and cheats and is unkind.
If you're going to take her part, I'll kill you.
I prefer it if you gave me a cup of tea.
Oh, help yourself. He's seen a lot of her since we were at that dive that night. He says she's quit drinking. The fool thinks he's cured her.
Have you forgotten what you did for Gray?
That had nothing to do with it. Thanks. Gray wanted to be cured. She doesn't.
How do you know?
Because I know women. Do you think she'll stick to Larry? Of course not. Sooner or later, she'll break out. It's in her blood. It's a brute she wants. That's what excites her. And it's a brute she'll go after. She'll lead Larry to hell.
It's very probable, but I don't see what you can do about it.
I can do nothing about it. But you can.
I?
Larry likes you, and he listens to what you say. You know the world. Go to him and tell him he can't make such a fool of himself. Tell him it'll ruin him.
He'd only tell me it's none of my business, and he'd be quite right. It may not turn out so badly as you think.
Oh, you make me tired. She's rotten to the core. Do you think I've sacrificed myself only to let Larry fall into the hands of a woman like that?
How did you sacrifice yourself?
I gave up Larry for one reason only. Because I didn't want to stand in his way.
Oh, come off it, Isabel. You gave him up for a square-cut diamond and a sable coat.
Oh!
Oh. You know, your Uncle Elliot wouldn't have thanked you if you'd broken one of his Crown Derby plates. They were made for the Duchess of Dorset, and they're priceless.
Pick up that bread and butter.
Pick it up yourself.
And you call yourself an English gentleman?
No, that's one thing I've never done.
Oh, get out of here. I never want to see you again. I hate the sight of you.
I'm sorry for that, because the sight of you always gives me pleasure. Have you ever been told that your nose is exactly like that of the Psyche in the Museum of Naples? And that's the loveliest representation of virginal beauty that ever existed. You've got exquisite legs, so long and shapely. I can't cease to be surprised at them because they were thick and lumpy when I first saw you. I can't imagine how you've managed it.
An iron will.
But of course, your most fascinating feature are your hands. They're so slim and elegant.
I was under the impression you thought them too big.
Not for your height and build. I'm always amazed at the infinite grace with which you use them. Huh? Whether by nature or by art, you never make a gesture without imparting beauty to it. They're like flowers sometimes, and sometimes like birds on the wing.
There are moments when I don't positively dislike you. In fact, sometimes I think you're rather sweet.
I will not have my face smeared with lipstick. If you want to kiss me on the lips, which is what a merciful providence provided them for. Thank you. Now, what's if you want?
Advice.
There's only one thing you can do. Make the best of a bad job. Larry's in the grip of the most powerful emotion that can beset the breast of man. Self-sacrifice. He's got to save the soul of the wretched woman whom he had known as an innocent child. And there's nothing you or I or anyone can do to prevent it.
But he's going to be so unhappy.
Do you love him very much?
It is a nuisance, isn't it? But I can't help it.
And you don't want to lose him altogether? Then make friends with Sophie. Be as nice to her as you can.
Ask her to lunch. It would be rather awkward for me after what I've just said to Larry.
Will you behave if I do?
Like an angel of light.
I'll fix it up. 1 o'clock tomorrow at the Ritz. What are you thinking? I don't quite like the look of you.
I'm sorry. I thought that was the one thing about me you did like.
You haven't got some scheme you've been hatching up?
Oh, I promise you I haven't. As a matter of fact, I'm terribly curious to see what she looks like, now that Larry's reformed her. He's gone.
I know.
I've lost him.
lost him for good. And I love him. I love him so tenderly. Now I've lost him. Do you suppose we'll ever see him again?
It isn't likely. His America will be as remote from yours as the Gobi Desert.
It's all so crazy, so useless. What is he trying to do with his life? What does he hope to find?
My dear, Larry has found what we all want and very few of us ever get. I don't think anyone can fail to be better and nobler, kinder for knowing him. You see, my dear, goodness is, after all, the greatest force in the world. And he's got it. You're very full of worldly wisdom this evening, Elliot.
Have you ever known me not to be? I don't mind telling you I have a sneaking sympathy for the boy. He's young and he wants to sow his wild oats before he settles down to married life. Very natural and very proper. I'll keep my eye on him in Paris.